Chapter 4. The Surprising Source of Shitty Thoughts. Before unveiling the second hack, among the most potent of the 7, I must provide some context. First, we'll ruminate about the source of your shitty thoughts. Then we'll briefly consider some traditional approaches to fixing the problem. And I'll explain why they don't serve you in your present state of misery. By that point, I expect you'll be reasonably receptive to the unusual nature of Hack 2. Believe me, I'm not trying to impress you or establish my creds here. I realize you're in a hurry to get to this game-changing hack and couldn't care less about my erudition. This mercifully brief section will establish that Hack 2 is perhaps the only feasible method to curtail your mental misery, short of killing yourself, which might not work anyway. Let's dive in. The source. Shitty or not, where do our thoughts come from? We perceive thoughts in much the same way we perceive sights, sounds, and odors in the external world. But many thoughts seem to be generated internally, irrespective of external conditions. Humans have exhibited abstract and symbolic thought for at least 40,000 and maybe a couple of million years. And it's reasonable to assume that early humans wondered where those thoughts came from. Therefore, humans have had millennia to investigate the compelling question, where do our thoughts come from? The answer? We have no frigging idea. If you expect to gain valuable insight by combing the abundant literature on this topic, don't waste your time. Nobody knows. Instead, just give me 3 or 4 pages here to summarize a handful of prevailing, if unproven, theories about what's going on inside our busy heads. Then I'll introduce my astounding alternative explanation that we'll use to change your life for the better. The modern scientific perspective asserts that our physical brains create our mental thoughts. The field of cognitive neuroscience describes thoughts as a continual series of electrochemical reactions occurring in the brain's 100 billion neurons. In your brain's multi-layered architecture, conscious thoughts emerge into your awareness as distillations of the deeper unconscious processing of electrical activity generated in trillions of neuronal connections throughout numerous modules of your brain. The complexity is mind-boggling. Presently, though, little is known about how your brain generates your mind and its shit show of miserable thoughts and unhappy emotions. It's widely accepted that damage to certain modules or processes of the brain can dramatically alter and impair thinking. But specifically how thoughts are generated and experienced as consciousness remains a faith-based mystery. This physical system approach to shitty thoughts and feelings, that is, they're caused by unbalanced brain chemistry, allows psychiatrists to prescribe drugs to disrupt or inhibit these physiological thought processes, while greatly enriching the pharmaceutical industry. Perhaps you've tried these medications. Research suggests they are slightly more effective at reducing depression in the average patient than placebos with similar side effects. They arguably are better than doing nothing, especially if you overlook their potentially unpleasant side effects. However, hundreds of billions of dollars of medications have not solved the daunting problem of depression and anxiety in our society. Countless medicated people still suffer through their shit shows all day, every day. And for now at least, neuroscientists are still scratching their heads about exactly where in the brain thoughts originate and how we can eliminate the shitty ones. It's also possible our thoughts are not generated internally by the machinations of our physical brains. For much of human history, people have believed in external sources for thoughts. Picture your brain as a radio that receives incoming signals and translates them via electrical activity into thoughts in your head. Okay, but where externally do thoughts come from? Again, we have no idea. Perhaps Satan's and God's angelic messengers are fighting for your immortal soul by whispering thoughts continually into your head, encouraging you to follow the right or wrong path to your eternal reward or damnation. Certainly millions, if not billions of folks throughout history have subscribed to explanations of this ilk, and many still do. Another metaphysical explanation is that packets of thoughts just sit out there somewhere in non-physical clusters, and your personal energetic vibration attracts thoughts of similar frequencies. Higher frequency vibrations attract happier thoughts, which in turn stimulate higher internal vibrations, creating a positive feedback loop. Similarly, lower vibrations attract shitty thoughts, which make you feel shittier, attracting even worse thoughts. In this paradigm, falling into a funk is as treacherous as quicksand. An especially popular metaphysical concept involves pairing the physical you with a non-physical part of yourself, such as your soul. Your higher self communicates with you via your thoughts and feelings. In this construct, folks having a lot of shitty thoughts are not living harmoniously with the desires of their higher selves. Shitty feelings are simply feedback that you are out of compliance with your soul's higher purpose. Another long-standing approach says your physical body and brain comprise the locus for multiple entities of personalities who are struggling to coexist. In this case, the thoughts in your head come from multiple voices, each with its own agenda. Among the countless variations of this theme, Sigmund Freud dominated psychoanalytic theory with his description of the interminable battle between the conflicting unconscious demands of the wild child id and the parental superego, with the hapless ego suffering as forbearing mediator. Freud's protege, Carl Jung, added a second level to our internal unconscious dimension, the collective unconscious, which further influences our thoughts through instinct and ancient archetypes. A more recent variation on the multiplicity of subpersonalities jostling for control of the mind is the Internal Family Systems Model, IFS, developed by Richard Schwartz, Ph.D. Schwartz's model claims each individual's mind has an indeterminate number of parts that fall into the categories of exiles, managers, and firefighters. The intention of each part is something positive for the individual, but sometimes they carry burdens that force them to go to destructive extremes. It's the role of the self to take the leadership position and create balance and harmony among the parts, similar to Freud's concept of the ego's role. The pinnacle of this intriguing concept of conflicting forces or personas vying for control in our heads comes from the creator of alchemical hypnotherapy, David Quigley, who developed a fascinating conference room therapy for the 24 distinct sub-personalities fighting to grab the microphone in your head and control your thoughts and destiny. My point here is that you can spend your life investigating the many theories about where our thoughts come from, as I have, and you'll probably conclude, as I have, that we'll never know for certain. No matter their source, they just keep pouring in. Each of these hypotheses for the source of human thought has naturally suggested approaches for living happily. I'll mention a couple shortly. But first, let's consider one final, lesser-known, yet highly compelling, metaphor for the true source of your shitty thoughts. I don't claim this source is more credible or true than any of those already mentioned, but it can prove indispensable for ending your misery, as it did mine. What I'm about to say might sound insane, but bear with me. There's a method to my madness. 𝐦𝐤𝐤, the parasite, and the foreign installation. My first inkling of this insight came from Robert Monroe, author of 3 books and founder of the Monroe Institute in West Virginia. His second book, Far Journeys, chronicles his out-of-body interactions with highly intelligent non-physical entities. In Chapter 12, Monroe introduces the term 𝐦𝐤𝐤 to describe human emotional energy, and he surprisingly claims human 𝐦𝐤𝐤 is harvested by non-physical entities as a highly useful source of creative energy. In fact, we humans are basically farmed, like cows, pigs, and chickens, to produce 𝐦𝐤𝐤. I was shocked at the prospect of not being at the top of the food chain. Despite my queasy discomfort, upon reflection, 𝐦𝐤𝐤 explains many aspects of the human condition. Interpersonal dynamics with associated love, compassion, fear, hatred, jealousy, and envy create a bottomless cauldron of 𝐦𝐤𝐤. The dramatic differences in emotional and physical needs between men and women, such that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, is a perfect setup for rampant 𝐦𝐤𝐤 production. Humans emoting vigorously while lounging in front of a TV show or cheering in a sports arena are efficient generators of 𝐦𝐤𝐤 in a safe environment. Wow! What a unique and mind-blowing concept! Again, it doesn't matter for our purposes if this radical idea is true or completely nuts. Either way, we can use it to your advantage, as I'll describe shortly. The unnerving concept of human emotions serving as energetic nutrition for non-physical entities reappeared as I studied the radically different worldview of the ancient Toltecs, as presented separately by both Carlos Castaneda and Miguel Ruiz. These 2 authors each describe a fascinating variation of inorganic beings who feed off the life force of humans. In his mega bestseller, The Four Agreements, A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom, which I bought on impulse in a Starbucks, Ruiz introduces the parasite as a living being made of psychic or emotional energy that invades the human mind and controls the brain, feeding on negative emotions that arise from fear. Comprised of a judge, a victim, and an associated belief system, the parasite dreams through your mind and lives its life through your body. It survives on the emotions that come from fear and thrives on drama and suffering. Ruiz's Four Agreements help the reader become a warrior who rebels against the invasion of this energetic parasite. Carlos Castaneda was an American anthropologist and best-selling author who, from 1960 to 1971, was an apprentice in Mexico to a Toltec sorcerer he called Don Juan. In The Active Side of Infinity, his 11th book chronicling his initiations, Castaneda recounts a stunning revelation Don Juan made about the non-physical entities he called the foreign installation. We have a companion for life. We have a predator that came from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rule of our lives. Human beings are its prisoners. The predator is our lord and master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we don't do so. They took over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are their sustenance. Just as we rear chickens in chicken coops, the predators rear us in human coops. Therefore, their food is always available to them. Echoing the ideas of Robert Monroe and Miguel Ruiz, Don Juan explains that the foreign installation feeds on our emotional energy, leaving us only the barest essence of life force needed to survive. By playing on our self-reflection, which is the only point of awareness left to us, the predators create flares of awareness that they proceed to consume in a ruthless predatory fashion. They give us inane problems that force those flares of awareness to rise, and in this manner, they keep us alive in order for them to be fed with the energetic flare of our pseudo-concerns. Your immediate reaction, like mine, might be, "Holy hell, this is mega depressing. Can this outlandish assertion actually be true?" We might never know. And as I said earlier, it doesn't matter. So please don't worry about that. True or not, the ideas of 𝐦𝐤𝐤, the parasite, and the foreign installation provide your first ticket to freedom from your misery and the reinvigoration of your life force. Because you resist new ideas, and I really want you to entertain this one, let me say this. We live in a ridiculous world where creatures, including you, eat each other as a source of energy. You have trillions of microscopic organisms feeding on various parts of your body right now. You accept this because science told you so, and you soldier on, hoping none of these unseen creatures overwhelm your immune system and kill you. If you're like most other folks, you also believe that humankind was created by a non-physical entity beyond our comprehension for God knows what reason. You might even accept the explanation that the reason is a lifelong behavioral test to decide whether your, also non-physical, soul spends eternity in bliss or hellfire. So tell me, is it really that big a stretch to say your shitty thoughts are coming from an unseen entity that is feeding off your unhappy emotions? Is it? Really? If it still is, or if you simply cannot tolerate the thought, then just consider the whole concept a useful metaphor. You are bombed relentlessly by shitty thoughts from an unknown source. For now, at least, let's assume this 𝐦𝐤, parasite, foreign installation idea is as good an explanation as any about the source of your miserable thoughts. Let's say your brain chemistry, your genetic disposition, your unfortunate childhood experiences, the annoying people in your life, or your own lousy luck or shortcomings are not responsible for your life-sapping depression and or anxiety. Your foreign installation is literally eating you alive. Let's personify your foreign installation and call it the beast. Yes, our working assumption for Hack 2 is that the beast is the source of your shitty thoughts. Warm up to it. It puts the responsibility for your shit show onto a nefarious third party, which instantly gives you a tiny measure of relief. You are not screwed up. You are under attack. instead of a mysterious source or a dark, uncaring universe? You possess your very own beast. In fact, it's possible the folks with the brightest life force attract the most vicious beasts, right? Perhaps you're being tortured by far more shitty thoughts than the average person because your once awesome life force lured a more rapacious beast. As you contemplate this mind-bending idea, perhaps you want to customize your image of your personal life force parasite and give yours a name of your choosing. An old friend of mine, Peter 𝐜𝐸, invented several clever ones: Stormentor, Craptor, Sidekick, Demoralizer, and 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐤. Feel free to draw a picture of your very own beast and write its name in large letters in the box on page 12 of your PDF workbook. Have a little fun with it if you can. Ironically, the beast, or whatever you're now calling your foreign installation, has no real power or formal dominion over you. It cannot control your actions or emotions. All your beast can do is pummel you perpetually with shitty thoughts. So why do these shitty thoughts from the beast feel bad when they land? These thoughts hurt because you give authority to the source, even though you have no idea what it is. Let's face the facts. You pay homage and give credence to an asshole embedded in your mind, who makes you miserable by constantly criticizing you, your life, and everything going on around you. You give the beast power to make you miserable because you care about what it says. I'm not saying your shitty life circumstances, job, school, money, health, relationships, and appearance issues, or existential concerns are irrelevant to your depression or anxiety. No. I'm saying they provide the ammunition the beast fires down on you. The smaller your actual problems, the harder the beast will work to drum up shit to torture you with. That's why successful, good-looking, healthy, popular, rich people can still be miserably depressed and anxious. So, humor me for now, and accept the unconventional assertion that your shitty thoughts are imposed on you by a nefarious, non-physical force beyond your comprehension. What approaches are best for banishing these shitty thoughts? The search for relief. For at least the last 150 years, and maybe as far back as the 9th century, humans have relied on some form of talk therapy to relieve depression and anxiety. Typically, the therapeutic alliance between a patient and therapist involves lots of talking by the patient, while the therapist guides the patient to insights leading to potential improvement of thoughts and relief of shitty emotions. I won't go into the many permutations since Freud popularized talk therapy in the late 1800s, because these are easily found on the web. In recent decades, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has emerged as an effective form of talk therapy, and a patient can even learn to implement CBT techniques without the presence of a therapist. As a vast oversimplification, CBT involves examining automatic negative thoughts, identifying distortions or untruths in the thinking, and substituting a rational response. For example, if your daughter gets sick and you feel shitty because your thoughts insist you're a failure as a parent, you use a CBT technique to identify the thought as one of 10 or more types of twisted thinking, such as jumping to conclusions, overgeneralization, or labeling. You then substitute the thought with a more rational response, such as, "Hey, all kids get sick from time to time, and I'm actually a very dedicated, caring parent. Ah, that feels better." CBT is a wonderful advance in psychotherapy. It's very useful for some, but not for you, not now. Why not? 2 reasons. First, CBT involves too much exhausting mental work. You lack sufficient life force to take on each of the 1,000 or more micro slashes you get hit with each day. Write it down, identify the type of twisted thinking, and substitute a more rational thought. You'll be mentally wiped out a half hour after breakfast, and you'll never have time to do anything else. Second, lots of the shitty thoughts you have are true. There is no twisted thinking involved. If you look in the mirror at your body that's 50 pounds overweight, your beast will say, "You're a fat ass." There is no rational response to substitute. Trying and failing to find one gives your beast more material to slash you with. So forget CBT for now. A simpler approach to responding proactively to shitty thoughts is the law of attraction, popularized by Esther Hicks, channeling a non-physical entity called Abraham, and later by the movie and book The Secret. In a nutshell, each thought has an emotional vibration that corresponds to a spot on a scale of 22 emotions, At the bottom are the emotions of fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. And at the top are joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, love. A thought that stimulates a feeling from the bottom of the emotional scale is feedback that you're not in harmony with your higher self. The law of attraction solution to shitty thoughts is a lot easier than CBT because you only have to find a thought that feels just a little bit better. The better feeling thought doesn't even need to be related to the shitty thought. Your response to, I'm a fat ass, or I'm a lousy parent, could be, geez, I'm excited about going bowling tonight. As long as it feels better, you're on the road to raising your vibrational frequency, and you'll attract more positive thoughts. I became enamored of this approach and employed it assiduously for several years. If an acquaintance asked what I was up to lately, I'd say, I'm finding a thought that feels better. I liked that each micro-slash from the beast did not require engagement or rationalization. I could simply change the channel from whatever shit the beast was dumping on me to a happier line of thought. Without conflict, I could just segue from feeling anxious about my dead-end job to simply being glad the rain had stopped or the commute traffic was moving. It also gave rise to Hack 1 because it helped me identify the instantaneous connection between each thought and its corresponding feeling. However, as with CBT, happy thoughts and the myriad related approaches to reframing thinking can only take you so far. It's exhausting to be on a continual search for a better feeling thought, and sometimes those are hard to come by. Shitty thoughts resurface persistently. Sifting frantically through a bushel of crappy thoughts in hope of finding just one good one traps the vibrational frequency at anxious. At some point in the future, CBT and finding happier thoughts might serve you well. But more draconian measures are called for right now in the battle of the beast. Press on to Hack 2.